every single time a person touches you, they commit a trespass to your person. That's the starting point. So if a dentist touches a patient, if a doctor touches a patient, they commit a trespass to that person. Now that trespass is something that can be covered by consent. If the expectation is one thing, because of the words that were shared between the dentist and the patient, and then the dentist goes beyond, touches the patient and does things beyond what the patient expects, then there could also be liability because informed consent was not received.
Welcome to another episode of the Irreplaceable Dental Team. And as usual, I got another good one for you today, but I'm not going to share. I'm going to let this gentleman tell us who he is, why he's here, and at the end of the day, I'm sure you're going to say, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that she brought this guest on. Welcome, Andrei. How are you?
I'm well, Doc. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you, and I hope that whatever I'll say today will be of value to those who listen.
I have no doubt. So I know who you are, but will you share with your guests a little bit about you and your journey and why you think you're going to bring some gems to us today?
Okay, sure. So I am an attorney at law here in Jamaica. We met recently, even though I knew you from well before, as I disclosed afterwards when I spoke at the Jamaica Dental Association conference on the topic of consent, and in particular informed consent.
Right.
Generally, I specialize in commercial law, and so my focus is on contracts and how people negotiate those contracts, with a particular focus on government procurement law. But I practice in other areas as well, in real estate conveyancing, in broad commercial matters, in corporate. I do a little bit of M&A, as well as some probate and administration and all other humdrum boring stuff. But I do have special interest in how people relate to each other and the law that governs those relationships. Yes.
Well, in those few sentences, you have confirmed that you're the man. So, Andrei, I have a quick question for you. We are doing so many things now in terms of implant dentistry and crown and bridge and cosmetics and all the things that make people go to the dentist, a place traditionally where they would not necessarily have wanted to go. But with that new zest to come and have changes, there comes a certain amount of expectations. And I'm not sure where we fall between what we should allow them to expect versus what the guaranteed results are. Can you speak to that at all?
Sure thing. Okay, so I guess the first thing to reckon, to deal with, is that in that kind of interaction where we're dealing with people's expectations, liability may attach to a dentist from two primary streams of law. One is in relation to the law of contract. And so where an enforceable promise arises based on the words that you use, then you could be found to be in breach of that expectation, which is legitimately raised. And we can deal with that in a little bit more detail afterwards. The second now is in relation to this topic of consent. And that really rests primarily in the body of law we call the law of torts. And what consent tries to do, it tries to dilute the very severe consequences of people touching other people. So let's be clear. Every single time a person touches you, they commit a trespass to your person. That's the starting point. So if a dentist touches a patient, if a doctor touches a patient, they commit a trespass to that person. Now that trespass is something that can be covered by consent. So let's go back to the original question. if the expectation is one thing because of the words that were shared between the dentist and the patient, and then the dentist goes beyond, touches the patient and does things beyond what the patient expects, then there could also be liability because informed consent was not received. Okay, so two possible streams, one in contract and one in torts. And I guess we can go into a bit more detail as you require.
So I guess what I would think as a challenge that could come up when we're looking at aesthetics,
yes,
it's very personal as to what I like versus what I don't like. And my colleagues in the past have used things like before and after photos to give people an idea as to what the end result might look like. And at the end of the day, it might look perfect to me, but still not quite meet the expectations of the client who wanted these cosmetic crowns placed. I don't know. What do you consent to when you are signing up to change your smile or to enhance or improve how your teeth look?
Great question. So let me, since you frame the question in terms of consent, let me answer it on that basis. So in the past, the way that a practitioner, in particular a medical practitioner, was judged was on the basis of what his or her colleagues would say was okay.
Right.
And so let me be clear. The amount of information that a practitioner had to disclose about a particular outcome or a particular risk in a procedure was judged by what all of those colleagues would say was okay. That's the best way I can say it. Recently, however, in terms of the legal tests, that judgment has shifted, and it's no longer what the colleagues think, but it's what a patient reasonably expects or thinks should happen. So the question about something like a cosmetic procedure, it probably requires, under this new dispensation, to be practical, it requires maybe a mock-up.
Yes.
Prior to the commencement of the procedure. So the practitioner and the patient, they sit and they may look at a computer-generated graphic as to how the thing is expected to look. But also, the practitioner should at all times mention to the patient where there is probably a statistical deviation from the mock-up and reality. So the practitioner may say something like, in 60% of cases, we are able to get you a result that looks very similar to the mock-up. But in 40% of cases, maybe it doesn't look that way. And so the patient is now aware of the risks that they are undertaking. And to that extent, I think you could dilute some of the liability in relation to treating on the patient's expectations. Now, that's answering in relation to the consent bit. So the patient's consent allows you now to go and do the work with the expectation that they will look similar to how that mock-up would look, or to some other photograph or image of what you are sort of aiming at. Does that make sense?
It does make absolute sense. I think where I find myself in the little spider web is the 60-40, meaning that the patient, you're saying, oh my gosh, this looks great. This is 80% or better than what I expected. You've already said to the patient 60-40, and now they're seeing 30-70 because of the fact that it's no longer looking at something that you can judge, but now you're looking at somebody's interpretation of what you've done. And I do know that going from looking at what the patient wants to even putting them in long-term temporaries to see if it feels and works well before you go to the final steps are all things that are good to have in place. But there's just this one set of folks that you and them looking at the same thing, and you would not believe it based on the discussion that they're having with you. So I guess nothing is 100% proof. And right. I guess what I hear you saying is that do your due diligence, put everything in writing, make sure that the informed consent covers as much as it can. And I guess what we are really saying is when it comes back, if it should come back to splitting hairs, your informed consent and your notes, copious notes, should be able to back you up.
That's right. So, yeah, you're completely correct on how the law is likely to work in that respect, and taking those contemporaneous notes, noting what was told to the patient and the detail and extent that it was discussed, so that the patient is able to appreciate the risks. And that's what it all really comes down to in relation to this consent thing. What's the risk that the thing won't look the way I expect? Or what's the risk of a negative consequence? Because even with the best of technique, sometimes things go wrong.
Yep.
And what I want you to think about, though, just to give you a little bit of comfort, yes, is that if these matters were ever litigated before a court, the court will itself try to apply as objective a standard as possible. So even though, yes, it is really what the patient expects, but the court doesn't simply ask, what does any old patient expect? The court asks, what does a reasonable patient could expect based on what you have disclosed to that patient? Now, the interesting thing about the way that the law has shifted, though, is that the law asks the practitioner to consider whether a particular patient may have particular sensitivities. So if you know that it's a patient who is very fickle, it may mean that you need to go an extra step in having that patient come to an understanding of whatever risks may be inherent in this aesthetic procedure or any other procedure for that matter. So that's one set of considerations. The other thing, though, I like what you said about putting things down in writing. And so this is where the contract comes in.
Yes.
That as far as possible, when it comes to these results that you cannot predict, what I try to advise practitioners to do is to not give warranties.
Right.
Yeah, because warranties are really important contractual terms. Right? The kind of guarantee that says, oh yes, man, this thing will definitely happen, or this, stay away from those things. Always couch that kind of discussion in the language of, well, statistically speaking, in 10 cases, 6 turn out this way or 7 turn out that way. And in the documents that you have the patient sign, whether it be your invoices or so on, whatever communications between yourself and the patient, you expressly disclaim any responsibility for a particular outcome. Now, that doesn't obviate you from, or allow you to now simply go and breach things and to perform at a standard below the contractually expected standard. But it says to the patient that, yes, the doctor is human, that there are some elements of this procedure that are unknown, and that to the extent that there is a contract, those unknown things cannot be pleaded to create liability for the practitioner. Very important. And I think too, just to wrap this up, dental and medical practitioners generally should probably have a best friend lawyer somewhere in that Rolodex who can help to look at the forms and to draft some of these things, especially as this era is so dynamic.
Yes.
Things change frequently.
And then let me add another layer to what you've said. Okay, we've presented this case. It looks fabulous. The patient comes back maybe a month later. They're highly disappointed in how it looks. And you're looking at it and you're saying to yourself, this person's oral hygiene is absolutely the worst. Things are looking puffy and swollen, not because of the appliance, but because of the lack of appropriate care. So, how do we balance that in the beginning, the wording, or how should we protect ourselves to ensure that when we provide a product, do they need to sign something to say that they're committed to brushing and flossing? I mean, I'm just being a little crazy, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
To ensure that we realize that it's a win-win. It's not just all about me, but it's me committing to give you something that is sturdy and aesthetic, and you committing to take care of it on a daily basis.
Yeah, excellent question. And I'm glad that you raised it, because I was actually going to go on to it to say that when you're having that discussion with your patient or your client about all the things that could go wrong in relation to a particular outcome, you also need to surface in that discussion their behaviors that may affect the long-term outcome, right? Especially in relation to this era of aesthetic dentistry. Okay, so when you're explaining that, okay, the patient says to you, okay, this whitening will last for 2 years. You say, well, in 70% of the cases, we expect it to last for about 2 years, provided that you don't smoke, that you are not chewing agents that will mess up your teeth. The one that my dentist cusses me about all the time is I drink too much coffee. Every time I go, she says, Andrei, why are you drinking so much coffee? It's staining your teeth, right? So all those practices, and that you would maintain your teeth by ensuring that you're paying attention to regular good oral hygiene, that you floss and you brush appropriately. So all of these things, all of these behaviors, if you do them, that's likely to take away from the efficacy of the treatment. And so you let them know that this is a part of the puzzle. Now, if it still doesn't sort of completely allow you now as a practitioner to be negligent or irresponsible, because at best, if a patient is not paying attention to their own oral hygiene, maybe that is just a contributory factor if something goes wrong. The judge at tribunal may still very well find that your standard of care fell below what was expected.
Right. So what I hear you saying, though, is it needs to be clear beforehand what we are willing to do and what we're expecting the patient to do to ensure that this works. And at the end of the day, if we have done what we should, and they have done what they should, if there's an issue, then it's totally different than if we are holding up our end of the bargain and they are not. So all of that should be in writing up front, what we expect of them to ensure the longevity of this appliance. Is that correct? Okay, so let me put on another layer of it now, because when we're looking at implants and crown and bridge, we don't fabricate that in the office. Not everybody does. There are some scenarios where you can have crowns made now immediately in the office. It wouldn't be an aesthetic case because, crowns that are cranked out in a dental office in an hour are not going to be as aesthetically pleasing as those that you would have sent to a master lab technician who would match the colors perfectly. So when we're looking at a situation where there's a third entity, a lab, who is responsible now if something goes south? Is it primarily the dentist? Is it the lab? Is it both? Because I may put in an appliance, I've checked the bite, it looks great, patient is compliant, saying they're doing what they should do, and this thing, the porcelain chips off or it breaks. What do I do as a dentist? Do I now need to approach the lab? And if so, give us some guidelines around that.
All right. So I would say that, again, you see those two streams that were surfaced at the beginning, liability in torts and liability in contract. Let's analyze this along those two.
Okay.
When the patient engages you for this particular appliance that is fabricated elsewhere, the thing is, the patient is in contract with you. Okay?
Right.
And so, to the extent that the patient is in contract with you, the patient can and is not in contract with the third party fabricator, then the patient would seek to sort of attach liability to you in contract. What that means, therefore, is that you have to ensure that your due diligence on these third parties is top tier, and that your contract documents between yourself and them appropriately identify where liability falls in the event of an appliance failure. Now, ordinarily, these contracts as between the dentist and the third-party fabricator,
yes,
would, even if it's not expressed in the written form of the contract, there would be some warranties, because the dentist has nothing to do with the manufacturing, right? So whenever that latent defect becomes patent,
right,
then even if there's no written agreement, you could imply those terms into the contract. But let me tell you something, Doc. If you are in the territory where you are trying to imply terms into a contract, the amount of money you will spend and the amount of years you will wait to get an outcome, it's better you just have it properly expressed up front, so that when an event incepts, you can be clear on that.
Okay.
Now, the second component of that, though, is now what happens as between the dentist and the patient. So I sort of dealt with, right? So there's an issue in contract to the extent that, a particular warranty was given around the performance of the appliance, right? And so to that extent, I would say, once you recognize that the implant failed or the appliance failed, then you need to start to think about some kind of compensatory mechanism. And by that I mean, you want to restore the patient to where they would have been had the thing not failed, right? So that might mean you use another device, or you remove the appliance for a while and doing something temporary. I don't know all of the dentistry things, right? So you must, in good faith, try to make good on what has gone wrong in that relationship. Now, in relation to the tortious issues, I would say that it's very important, especially if a third-party fabricator is involved, very important that you get from the patient a list of sensitivities. Because maybe patients are sensitive, maybe they're allergic to particular materials that are being used by the fabricator. And so you'd want to know that upfront in order to ensure that you can discuss those risks with the patient.
Makes absolute sense. All right, so now I'm going to pick your brain again. There's sometimes, you see, when you start a procedure, maybe it's a surgical procedure, and you have treatment plan for A. But once you get in there, because despite all the imaging and so You
Yes.
still never know exactly what you're dealing with until you're in there. So let's say that you've started along the course of treatment plan A, and something happens, or something unforeseen, or some element looks different than how it looked on the x-rays. You now need to veer to treatment plan B. Now, the original consent was for A, but now for the health of the patient, or to ensure that the procedure goes well, you need to do a variation and move to B. But the original consent was for A. What do you do?
Stop if you can, right? So if it's sensible, stop the treatment, explain to the patient what has happened, and obtain new consent for treatment plan B.
So can that be a verbal, or what if the patient is under?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so I don't presume to know too much about anesthetics or anesthesia. But Doc, if it is something that you calculate, I'm going to leave this now to the practitioner's judgment.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that you calculate, where you calculate that the risk of not stopping
Yes.
outweigh the risk of stopping,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You weigh those,
Mm-hmm.
and you make a determination as to what best serves the patient, recognizing, because we're in the third one now, recognizing that the patient consents to the touch that was discussed in plan A.
Yes.
A touch that goes out of that scope is trespass to their person,
Oh,
and
boy.
therefore it's very problematic. Now, this is why the law is kind of crazy, because I would say that there has to be some kind of limited ground of necessity.
Right.
Because as a dentist or medical practitioner, your first job is to do no harm.
Right.
Right? So if you identify that this thing that is necessary
Mm-hmm.
or saving the patient's life, or for alleviating pain or what have you, that it is necessary to do it, then I think you're on better ground if you proceed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if it's absolutely necessary, and again, that's going to be in your judgment.
Right.
Phone a friend, especially if you're a young dentist. If you can, go seek a quick consultation with a senior. Right? Us as attorneys, we do that all the time. I mean, because we're all on different parts of the spectrum of practice, right? So young attorneys call me because I'm somewhere in the middle, and I call the older attorneys because you want to make sure that the decision you're about to take is the one that is the most risk-free, right? So yes, there are times when in the middle of the treatment that you may need to proceed, but I would say the basic principle is that the consent for treatment plan A only covers the consent for only covers plan A treatment. Any other treatment requires new consent.
Okay, so you know what that means. Enough prayers before you start anything.
Yes, no prayers. You asked a good question about if the consent for plan B can be verbal.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I would say yes, it is possible, but I would calibrate that on the basis of who is in the chair. So if you know that is somebody who is fickle, who is likely to come back and try a thing,
Yes.
then no, you're going to sign that right away.
Yes, I get
write it up. Yeah. But if you know it's somebody who you have a reasonably good professional relationship with, then in the company of your hygienist or whomever is assisting you, who can attest to what they have said, then you could probably deal with the verbal consent in the moment and then maybe write it down afterwards.
Okay, that makes sense. So here's another scenario. I'm loaded with scenarios, right? So sometimes, right, a procedure requires multiple layers, and in your best judgment, you're going to get the best result by doing it in multiple layers. But you'll get someone who says, no, I don't want to do that. Let's go straight to the end. Case in question, this person has short teeth. Mm-hmm. They want crowns. In order to have the length for retention and aesthetic value, they really need to have a crown lengthening, create a little more space so that when you put in the final crown, the dimensions don't look weird. The retention is more likely to be stronger. Mm-hmm. In the event that patient wants to skip the middle part and go straight to the end, how would you advise us to approach it? Let me tell you about me, right? I'm a little radical. I'm going to say I'm not going to be able to do it because I think people have selective memories.
Yes.
And no matter how much you tell them, and when the end result is not what they would like, or it's not staying or whatever, they're going to come back and point to you, even the best of friends, right? But yes. I yield to your expertise.
Yes. Yeah, you're very similar to me, Doc. Just this morning, I attempted to fire a client because they have come to me for a particular service. Mm-hmm. Right? This scenario is not exactly on point, but I'm just giving you an example of sometimes when your gut tells you to just exit from a relationship, it's probably better. Right? Yes. So this client has come to me. Is not a client who is unknown. It's repeat business, but they're trying to rush me to do a particular thing, which requires a lot of care. I mean, I'm meant to read a 78-page document in 2 days. I cannot do that. And they keep pushing. So I said to them this morning, you may need to seek alternate counsel because I'm just unable to give you the result at the speed that you now want. Okay. They were not too happy with that. No, we're going to stay with you. We'll do whatever you say. All right. But more important to the question, I think your obligation as a practitioner is to explain fully to the patient all of the dependencies and contingencies. So you say, look, we need this treatment is composed of these 2 or 3 parts, and one depends on the other.
Right.
You may say, now, to the extent possible, one is severable. So you could maybe do step A and leave it there. But it's just not going to be as effective as doing step B and step A. Right. Lay it out clearly to the client. When the patient gives you an answer, you repeat the answer to the patient. You say, are you sure that this is what you want to do? And you write it down and you allow the patient to sign to say that this is what was thinking. Because you will have some patients that will come back and say that you attempted to upsell them a particular treatment. All right?
Yes.
But it's in your clinical judgment that this is how the thing should go.
Right.
So just explain, be as fully transparent as possible. Explain to them all of the parts, all of the contingencies, give them the decision and allow them to sign to it. Maybe they need to go away and think about it. Allow them to do that, because sometimes when people sign under duress, they come and they say, no, this vitiates the decision that was made.
Yes.
So that's how I would say approach it. Lay it all out, give them some time to think about it, record the response. So
what about a scenario where you have an associate dentist working in another dentist's office, and that associate is not necessarily feeling that these materials are best to be used on the clients, but this is what is provided in this office? How responsible is that associate because of the materials that he's required to use, especially if he knows that there are others out there that may be better? What level of risk do you have being an associate, having to operate using the materials and equipment that are provided for you, even if you don't agree 100% with what is being offered for you to use?
Wow. Interesting. Okay, so I think there are two important prongs to that question, at least. Maybe there are more. One is there any duty to raise this matter with the senior dentist with whom you work? And I would say an unqualified yes. Do it in a manner that's respectful.
Right.
Okay? Because there may very well be a good reason that those particular materials have been chosen and given to you for use. You know? So you may, request a meeting with the senior dentist and raise your concerns. I would also recommend that you find a way to put it neatly in writing without coming over as very threatening. And so that preserves the relationship, but also raises the issue for the consideration of the senior dentist. Now, in relation to that same associate and his patients,
yes,
now, or her patients, I believe that the associate always has a duty. If the associate is aware of particular risks in relation to the use of these materials, that those things must be discussed with the patient prior to the treatment. Now, again, there are some relationship issues that are going to come into play, because you don't want to do it in a way now that the patient goes back to senior dentist and say, hey, if you ever know what such and such is saying.
Exactly.
You're right? You really do have to manage it well. But yes, if you are aware as an associate dentist, because again, the obligation you have to your patient is not something that senior dentists can step in and take necessarily. Maybe some portion of liability will attach there, but your duty to warn and to discuss the risk that you are aware of is probably paramount, is going to supersede any liability that would attach to senior. So yes, if you have concerns about particular materials, and I would imagine that those concerns are not sort of capricious. There must be some clinically relevant concerns.
Yes.
That in 10 out of 15 cases, there was a negative reaction. Those are things that need to be discussed with the patient, and as I say, discussed in an appropriate way with the senior dentist.
Let me tell you something. I think this is an episode that my listeners and viewers are going to have to listen to a couple of times, because it's so rich with information. Things that we need to know on a daily basis, because sometimes your decision has to be made like that, and if you haven't thought it through, it's like you do the best that you can, but it may not be the right decision. So having the opportunity to process these things in advance is really something that we can hold on to and keep in our back pocket. Sometimes we might have to pull it to the front pocket. But before we go, I want to ask you, is there any one thing that you wish every dentist understood and would do consistently?
Okay, yes. And if I could just say to all the dentists under the sound of my voice, all the dentists in Radioland, professional practice as a dentist, as an engineer, as an attorney has become increasingly more difficult over the years as persons have become more aware of rights.
Yes.
And are willing to take every step to vindicate those rights. In relation to that core of the dentist-patient relationship, your patient allows you to touch them only in relation, only with that limited scope that was agreed. That is all you are entitled to do. And it is no longer the case that you can say, this is what all the other dentists would have done. It is now for you to analyze from the patient's perspective the extent to which they appreciate the risks of what you are going to do or what you intend to do. And so you have to be multiple times aware.
Yes.
All of the risks related to the procedures that you undertake frequently, no matter how basic they may be. And you have to discuss them with your patient, and you have to record them properly.
Yes.
And ensure that you only work in accordance with the scope of the permission given to you for those purposes. And one of the things we discussed at that conference, Doc, was a particular situation with this patient, Mrs. Duchesne. Oh, I forget the particular issue she had now, because medical issues have these long names. But we raised it earlier. She went in for an aesthetic procedure, and the dentist, with all the best intention in the world, he did a little extra thing so that all of the geometry would line up in accordance with what he knows is supposed to happen. But that did not satisfy her, because he went outside of what she consented to.
Yes.
So just remember, these rights, they are arising quickly. So just be mindful of that scope of consent and only operate within that. That will help you to be a bit more risk hardy and resilient in your practice as you proceed. That would be my word. There are many other things I would say, like make sure you have one lawyer on speed dial. But that is secondary to making sure that you understand the shifting perspective in relation to this consent issue.
Yes, I think that you have really given us quite a bit of information and things that we can listen and put into place immediately. And it's so important, once you've had a conversation and gotten information, to be able to understand it in such a way that you can make a difference tomorrow. And I think you've done that for us. And oh my goodness, now I want to see why I wanted him to be on the podcast. I told you he was going to drop some gems, and he did, and then some. I have one more question for you.
Sure.
Mr. Bennett, would you ever consider coming back to be a guest in the future? There's so much more I have to pick your brain about, but I'm mindful of the time.
Of course not. You can call me anytime. You might have to call me more than once.
I'm good at that.
But yeah, anytime. I'm always available.
Good people are always very busy. When you're good at what you do, you don't have downtime. So I get it. All right. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Well, we have been schooled. The information that we got today reminds us that informed consent is very specific. And if you're going to veer to the right or to the left, then you need to recognize that that doesn't necessarily cover anything beyond what you agreed to. We also have to make sure that our patients not just hear, but fully understand and agree to what we are providing as treatment. And it's always good to have a legal ear on hand, just in case you need to clarify something, or you just need to make sure that you're on the right path. Associates, It's your responsibility. So if there are things that you're being asked to use that you think are subpar, then you need to speak out, right? Or make a decision as to whether this place is the right place for you or not. And finally, recognize that the Lord no longer looks on what your colleagues would do, but they're looking at the patient, what a reasonable patient would accept. Big difference. Anyway, the more we know, the more we can be informed, and the more we will stay in control of a situation. Listen, if you haven't already, subscribe. Life is good when we live, learn, and grow together.